Hi, this is Sophie, Simon and Ben from That Final Scene.
Yeah, we just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Amazon Music where you can find this very podcast.
So, let's dive in, shall we?
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again.
That scene, that last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here!
No, I cannot.
It's over. Go home. That final scene
Starts now.
Hello and welcome once again to another episode of That Final Scene. My name is Sophie and I'm here joined by my two co-hosts, Ben and Simon. How are you both doing?
Good, yeah, not too bad. January's been a long month, but not too bad.
Depressing?
Sorry, how are you?
All right. I've just had to watch Beethoven 1, Beethoven 2, Matilda 3 times all day.
Oh, the joys of being a dad.
Yeah, Jesus, really. I mean, I like the film Matilda, so I'd be happy
I
to
actually
watch
really
it 3
like
times.
it, yeah. Danny DeVito's genius.
I don't know about Beethoven 1 and 2, though. Isn't that just the movie about the big dog?
Yeah, there's a lot of slobbering and lots of like mess, which little kids find hilarious. But Matilda, I think, is a masterpiece. I think it's really, really
So well done.
beautifully structured. The rhythm of it, the humor's amazing. And it doesn't patronize kids. I think it's really clever. I have to say, this is probably a bit mean on the new one, but I'd much prefer the Danny DeVito version than the Tim Minchin Netflix one that we watched recently.
I think you're in the majority.
I've seen the stage show, and I thought the stage show was fantastic. I thought the stage show was a really good interpretation of the film, whereas the new Netflix one is a movie about a stage show interpretation of a film, which is also an interpretation of a book. So it's kind of like it's gone through like 4 different like filters.
Meta.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just found the new one just too evil. There wasn't enough humor to match the sort of the meanness of Miss Trunchbull and all of the sort of demonic things that she was doing. Whereas in the Danny DeVito one, it just feels more innocent somehow and more like magical and more playful.
Yeah, there's something in the stage show that it's Miss Trunchbull is very evil, but there's something a bit pantomime about it as well, like kind of lampoonable. Having said that, there are some scary moments in it. I feel like if I was a child, I probably would have been a little bit terrified. But
I found an amazing piece of trivia today about Mara Wilson, the little girl that plays Matilda in the Danny DeVito one. And it's that her mum was dying of, I think, breast cancer during the filming of that film, which must be pretty mad for a little girl to be like dealing with, let alone shooting like a Hollywood feature film.
yeah,
And Danny DeVito got an early edit of the film and showed it to her mum in hospital, so
Oh
she
my
could
God.
see the as much of the film as possible before
Yeah.
she died. And then she died pretty soon afterwards. So that girl was dealing with all of that whilst
Yeah.
filming a kind of magic comedy kids film,
Shocking.
which is pretty mad.
another reason to love Danny DeVito as well.
Yeah.
Just
I
seems
love
like
him.
such a nice guy.
Yeah.
What has he been up to lately?
Well, he's in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's kind
still,
of
that's
his thing now,
the-
right? Isn't it? Which I haven't watched.
Yeah, I have. I think it's
Have
right
you
up your
watched it?
alley. Yeah. I've
Really?
watched all of it. Yeah.
So I don't know what vibe I give off because people have said to me before, I think you'd really enjoy it. And I watched like the first episode and maybe 1 or 2 episodes of it. And all it is people saying fuck and cock and wank and like swearing really aggressively in this bar. And it's just now maybe it gets a lot better, but like
It
just kind of
does.
like smutty swearing humor, which is, we're going to talk about comedies on this episode.
Yes.
So maybe a good segue into it. But yeah, when people kept saying that to me and then I watched the first episode, I was like, do people just think I just like to swear? Like swearing's just my thing.
Yeah, no, I hate to say that, but it is one of those shows that you have to warm up to it, even though I don't want to say that because I'm like, oh, you need to watch like 5 episodes, but you actually kind of do.
Well, everybody seems to love it. Like it's,
I've had that, I think, with BoJack Horseman. I can't get over the first few. I'm just like, I know it's supposed to be incredible, but I just can't get over the hump.
but the thing I've heard about BoJack Horseman though is that does BoJack Horseman not after season 1 kind of takes a bit of a tonal shift, right?
After season
So
2, yes.
After season 2, yeah. So I'm the same as you. I watched the first season of it and I just didn't really get it. It kind of felt like it was on that Rick and Morty trail of like kind of funny, like a little bit offensive, like adult kind of comedy cartoons that was like, you know, South Park is obviously in its own kind of ecosystem, way off in the stratosphere like it is. And then Rick and Morty came along and then BoJack Horseman was there. But it changed after.
What's like, Sophie, what would you have for
Yeah.
lunch?
I don't know what's happening. And it sounds like aliens to me.
Yeah.
Like a
We're being
UFO.
Your door's
abducted.
open a little bit.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
fine.
Yeah.
It's just a boat.
We're going to get noped.
The alien's going to go pop its head around the door.
But yeah, no, I heard that BoJack takes a completely different turn after like the second season, which is why I couldn't get through season 1 either.
I had the exactly same reaction to BoJack. So what I did is, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen some episodes from season 2. Is that I actually gave up on it for a few months, and then I started from season 3. Like that was my entry point to the show.
Is it the kind
almost.
of show that you could watch? Like, could I watch a
Yes,
YouTube
easily.
video telling me what happens in the first 2 seasons, and then watch season 3?
Yeah. And then it's there that it starts to find its ground and get
Okay.
a lot more vulnerable and actually be like smart comedy. But going back to Philadelphia quite quickly, I think obviously the swearing is like just the layer that they try to, use in order to tell some really hard-hitting truths. Like it's actually smart comedy. Like they talk about, misogyny, but actually, I don't know, on the surface you might think they're actually being misogynistic, but they are anti, it's very subversive. So I do recommend you
meta.
see it is meta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll give it another go, and I'll give BoJack another go as well.
Yeah. So a quick question for you, Simon. Can you remind me the final scene of Matilda? Or the original one?
The final section is where Matilda has the adoption documents, and her mum and dad are about to drive off to Guam. I don't even know, where is Guam?
It's in like Central America, Guam.
They're
isn't it?
basically fleeing because of all the naughty stuff that they've done. And she gets Miss Honey, her favourite teacher, who's really nice, to sign her over to
Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like the magic of Hollywood. Instant adoption.
And Miss Honey becomes the principal of the school, doesn't
Yeah,
she?
she
Because
does.
Yes.
And there's a sort of happy ending sequence where it kind of runs through lots of nice things that happen.
because she was Miss Trunchbull's niece, or isn't there something about her being the niece of Miss Trunchbull? or
Yeah, they're
something like
related.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I can't remember what the last shot is, but it's like Danny DeVito narrating a kind of and they all lived happily ever after sequence. And I think one of the last shots is like Matilda and Miss Honey like sitting on the porch in the sunshine reading books and
I
having a
actually do
lovely
think that's
time.
the final shot.
It might be that.
I have a feeling that's it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So joyful.
yeah.
That's what you need in
And
January.
Danny DeVito's narration is 10 out of 10.
Nice. We love a good
I'm
narration.
surprised.
Because I think it's really interesting because obviously he plays the horrible father. And you, on paper, you'd be like, well, that's not going to work. You can't be the baddie and narrate it and have this warm aura with your narration, but it kind of works. Very clever.
Ben, what have you been watching?
What have I been watching? I haven't watched that much really since we met up last. I watched the first episode of The Last of Us. So Simon, you're obviously getting into video games and stuff now. So The Last of Us has finally come out. They're finally releasing the TV show now.
Thoughts?
And yeah, I mean, I'm loving it already. I mean, it's one episode in. They've released another episode today.
Apparently it's really close to the game.
Yeah, so it's weird. So as someone who played the game and loved it, like the game is incredible. Like it's the closest a game has ever come to me for like as like a good playing it is almost like watching a really engrossing film. Like it's fantastic. Like the story is more important than the gameplay almost. Watching it is weird. It is weird seeing it and being like I remember like I watched it with my girlfriend. Oh my fiance. We're doing Bridesmaids.
Is there a hungry bear anywhere?
But yeah, it is weird like watching and saying, oh, I remember like playing through, and she kept saying to me like, oh, so you know what happens next? And I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what happens, and I know what's going to happen in the second series because I've played the second game as well. But they are supposedly like doing slightly different things with it. So like they've added some characters to it. So I know Nick Offerman's in it, and the guy who plays the concierge in the White Lotus first season, the Australian guy Murray something or other, is in it, and they're
really?
additional characters, so they're not in the
Love
game.
him.
So I'm interested to see what they do with it. But yeah, it's good. It's tense. Pedro Pascal's is great. Bella Ramsey's great, and I think it's.
So is it, since you play the game, is it like replaying the game but being able to relax and just enjoy it without having to do anything?
Not necessarily relaxed because it's an incredibly tense program.
But do you know what's going to happen largely?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because
exactly. So like it is weird watching it and being like, well, I know you're going to die, and I know you're going to, and I know what happens to you, and I know why you're like this and that. And so, yeah, it is a little bit weird, and it is kind of like, it is relaxing, but it's nice because I can sit there and kind of be like, oh, I wonder what this interpretation of it's going to be like, as something that it's kind of interesting. Like, the way you always talk about, people always talk about people who read comic books and then comic book movies and like the interpretation and like how true they'll be. For me, this is kind of like that. Like I loved the game. I thought it was incredible. And so it's really nice to see what the interpretation is going to be like. And I think it's working well because they've got the writer of the game. It's not like they've just given it to a showrunner and said, go and make this really successful video game into a TV show. They've actually got Neil Druckmann, who wrote both the games. And then it's the guy, I think it's Craig Mazin, who wrote and produced the Chernobyl show.
Oh, I remember you saying, yeah.
Amazing.
That's wicked.
And just a really strong cast. So, yeah, I mean, I'm loving it already.
The Chernobyl thing I found so dark and so...
Yeah, but so well done as well.
Yeah, and so, and like
I'd really watch it if it was something freaking now £50 a day, whatever it is.
Yeah, you can borrow my account. I'll give you my password.
Yeah, that's what I've been. Yeah, this is why I've been holding off to it. But I'm gonna watch it as well.
So yeah, so The Last of Us is the kind of the main thing that I've been watching at the minute.
That's awesome. I wonder what they do with the deaths, because like if you compare it to something like Game of Thrones, for example, like even though the show did follow some deaths that happened in the book, they also diverted from some others.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm interested now to see what they do with these like 2 additional characters that they're putting into it, and how much, if they will kind of deviate, if any. I know like a lot of the reviews I've read of the reviewers who've seen the whole thing already have said like it stays quite as true to it as it needs to, without like, oh God, sorry, my stomach just rumbled there, without like going, too far from the source material, which is pretty good, I think.
And is the idea to do a limited series, or are they open to a second season?
So I don't know. So there's 2 games, and actually I think people want there to be a third one. But I don't know if the first series is going to be all of the first game, because obviously it's like a game that's hours and hours long. Like there's a lot to do, and there's a lot that you can drag out with a TV show. So I'm not sure. I don't actually know what point the first season is going to get to. Will it encapsulate the whole thing, or will they try and extend that into a second season and then go into the
How
second
many
game
hours
from there?
did you spend playing the game, would you say?
Oh God, like I think the game is like 14 or 15 hours plus, maybe. And to be honest, like they released
That's not too bad.
a remastered version of it, and I think it was about 20 hours. Hang on, let me have a look. The Last of Us.
If you think how many hours there are in a big series, it's probably not that dissimilar.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, I was gonna assume a lot more.
So yeah, 15 hours is the original one. But you can spend up to 22 hours on it, depending on if you're a completionist or not, which I'm not really, like, I'm not one of those.
Oh, that's a
gamers
good
who's
word.
like,
Completionist.
Yeah, completionist. Yeah, I'm not a 100%er on everything. I don't really.
I'm not
I don't really do
100% Elven.
No, exactly. As soon as the end credits roll, unless it's
Yeah.
something really interesting, I
Unless
tend
it's
to
a
park it.
post-credit section.
Well, there very well could be, yeah.
Yeah, because other people or players would just go back and play all the different other
But The
scenarios.
Last of Us is different in that it is a linear story. Like it's not like
okay.
you can go back and replay sections of the game, but it's not like an open world thing where you can go and
Right.
at least if I don't think it is. I can't remember it being one. The new one is, the second one is. We're talking about video games. Sorry, way too much on a movie podcast.
I do think that, our listeners are actually going to appreciate that, because it's actually background information for the show, and it's everywhere right now.
And I saw Tim, our friend comedian of cinema, I think if he's listening, I think I saw that he had played the games and he was at the premiere, I think.
Oh,
or at
was
least,
he?
yeah, I saw he got some cool
Ooh,
Firefly
buzzy.
merch. So yeah, I'm sure hopefully Tim appreciates it.
That's interesting. We're going to give our thoughts in the next episode. Hopefully, Simon, you and I are going to catch up on The Last of Us.
yeah.
Watch it.
Yeah.
Watch that first. Watch an episode or two.
Good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. What about you, Sophie? What's been going on?
At it with the movie a day mission. So probably since we
It just sounds more and more of a chore every week.
Yeah.
No,
you
no,
don't
no.
make it sound enjoyable.
Well,
I can see on your TV, Runaway Jury.
I mean, that is
this?
my second movie today.
Dipping our
which
toes
is-
into John
It's
Grisham.
paused at
But actually,
28 minutes to go.
Yeah, but actually, I haven't really been watching that one.
28 minutes to go, and Rachel
closely.
Weisz is in
I
Dress.
love Rachel Weisz. In About a Boy, I used to
So-
really fancy her.
She's the best part about this film, I have to say.
She's amazing.
Well, thank you, Secretary. It's not too bad. But no, it's just this month. It's just really long and depressing, and I feel like it's affecting my mood. But yes, since we last met, I've probably seen 14 more movies.
Wow.
I've seen some bad ones,
Highs and
some
lows?
mediocre. Yeah, well, a really bad one I saw yesterday it's called The Bad Samaritan.
Is that's not the Sylvester Stallone movie, is it?
No, that's a David Tennant and Robert Sheehan film.
It's Magic Mike : The Bad Samaritan.
I see.
It's that one.
This is what Magic Mike 2 should have been.
It does sound like
The
a porn
Naughty
film.
Samaritan.
To be fair, oh my God, it's awful. It's from 2018. It was on Netflix. I have a soft spot for Tennant, so I saw him and I was like, yeah, it was just really bad. Just nothing.
Not a fan of Robert Sheehan, though.
Yeah.
I've never actually heard of it. Hang on, I need to Google this movie.
I mean, it's about a home invasion. I mean,
God, okay.
Robert invades into David Tennant's house, who's like this sort of super rich guy, and then things go south, obviously. But it could be really good if it was camp, like, because they both tried so hard to be serious, it fell flat. So that was disappointing and boring and long. Me and Michael Waston were like, we want this to be over, but we committed to the mission.
Love it.
And then in terms of highs, I saw Tar with Kate Blanchett. So directed by Todd Field. Have you guys seen?
Never heard of it.
So
TAR.
Yes, TAR. So Todd Field has only done 3 films: In the Bedroom, Little Children, a film I love with Kate Blanchett and Patrick Wilson, and Tar is his 3rd film.
Okay.
It's a bit of a flex to land Kate Blanchett for your 3rd film, but okay. So Tar is about a fictional composer called Lydia Tarr, and the story kind of charts her fall from grace because she's done something very problematic in modern terms that gets her cancelled, basically. So it's very much about cancel culture and how doing something can basically destroy your career. And yeah, Kate Blanchett gives the performance of the year. I was saying to Ben earlier, if Michelle doesn't win Best Actress for Everything Everywhere, I would be happy with Kate Blanchett taking the award for Tar.
I have to say, Sophie, I'm reading about this film. It sounds much more interesting than you've made it out to be. The one-line synopsis is: a pair of burglars stumble upon a woman being held captive in a home they intend to rob. Wow.
Wait, she's talking about a different film now.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
Bad
going
Samaritan.
back to Bad Samaritan, yeah. Yeah, Tar's definitely not that.
So yeah, I definitely recommend Tar, and I think, Simon, you're gonna love the sound design because they play like with classical scores, because it's like basically what happens takes place just days away before she has this massive symphony recording, so she needs to nail it, but something happens and then things just spiral. But yes, it's just
an exciting incident.
Yes, exactly. Well, or something comes from the past, basically. Something emerges from the past and gets your cancelled.
Somebody gets double based.
Which is usually the case.
Cello, it's a double bass.
Well, but that's usually the case in like cancel culture. Something, emerges from the past, from your past 10 years ago, and then you're kind of done. So yeah, that was the best film I've seen in the past 2 weeks. And then I want to get your thoughts on After Sun. I'm not gonna give your review just yet, but yeah, Paul Mescal just got a BAFTA nomination, so we're excited to see whether he's gonna get recognized by the industry.
And how he does in Gladiator 2.
Oh.
The Return of Gladiator.
I've heard that rumor.
I thought it wasn't a rumor. I thought it was pretty much confirmed.
Is it confirmed? I thought it was just okay.
Maybe it is just a rumor. I thought it was pretty much nailed on that he'd got it. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, I can see it. I can see it.
The future version of the young boy in it.
I'm happy with it.
That they're not going to bring Russell Crowe back from the dead, which will be gas.
He's not died, is he?
No, in Gladiator.
Oh, sorry. Wasn't listening. I was thinking about the other films that I watched, which aren't quite as highbrow as some of Sophie's numbers. I watched, I had to watch Running Man again for work reasons. And then I ended up watching, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then I ended up watching the documentary Pumping Iron. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, I've heard about it. It's supposed to be amazing, isn't it?
Such a treat. 1977.
Where did you watch it?
I bought it on Apple Movies.
Okay.
And it's a documentary about the Mr. Universe bodybuilding competitions in the late 70s, and Arnie features in it really heavily.
It's his first. It was one of like his first appearances on kind of screen and stuff.
It must be, yeah.
I think that's It's like pre-Terminator and stuff.
Oh yeah. And there's a really funny bit because they're all these guys, trying to do these pose down competitions. They're getting like tutored by like ballet dancers and stuff on how to pose and how to like work the crowds and stuff. And there's a lot of banter, but a lot of like sparring and kind of one-upmanship. And there's this little guy called Lou that Arnie keeps like beating in these competitions. And Arnie just plays it cool all the time, and Lou keeps like trying to be his friend and like,
oh wow!
But he really looks up to him, but he also really wants to beat him because Arnie's like just so good at this stuff. And then there's this section right towards the end where they're all sitting around a table, and they're about to get the results of who's won like Mr. Universe or whatever. And Arnie just leans over to Lou and is just like, I just called my mother, told her I've won. And he hadn't even won yet, and Lou's and then Arnie just wins. It's amazing. It's worth watching just for that clip.
Honestly, Arnie has so much charisma, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Although because I obviously searched for it, then I started getting served stuff on YouTube related to it. And there's a video I haven't watched yet called "Why Documentaries Lie," and it's like got the pumping iron like still.
If you want another quick treat, I suggest you watch. During COVID, Arnie was interviewed on like Jimmy Kimmel or I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or something like that, and he's interviewed from his California home, and halfway through the interview, his donkey, which has free roam of the house, just comes in and he like talks to the donkey like it's a human person.
The donkey lives in the house?
Yeah, he has a donkey that just like comes into the house, and that is then just part of the interview, like Arnie and his donkey that he's like feeding carrots to, and the donkey has like a permit, like the donkey's called like Gertrude or something like that, like it has a human name.
Please welcome Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hello, Governor.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
You've got an infestation there, it seems.
I have my Lulu here. They love to eat here when I have lunch. And I just finished lunch, and now they are here, and they just like to participate a little bit with the lunch. I hope you don't mind.
Quite eccentric, because like in the documentary, I think he basically trains in either Southampton or Portsmouth, which I would never have expected. Basically, he had no money, and this family in like Southampton basically took him in.
Well, he's from a really he's from a poor background in like Austria. Isn't he? Like he's not from a wealthy family or anything.
So he arrived in the south coast of the UK in the early 70s, mid 70s, and then this family like he lived with them, and they like helped him train in their garage and like got him into these competitions and stuff. It's really not what you expect.
Wow.
But the only thing I think is probably perhaps what that YouTube video is about in terms of they lie to you is like they never talk about steroids or drugs.
Okay.
And that must have been part of that scene, but it's never mentioned in this documentary.
The elephant in the room. So watch Pumping Iron and then watch the clip of Arnie feeding his donkey during the interview. That's not a euphemism.
We can put the link in the show notes as well.
Yes. Yeah, we'll find that.
We'll do that.
What's this?
It's a movie.
No!
Oh, I liked it.
No!
Can I say something?
No!
I don't get it.
What don't you get about it?
Community, we're back. So since we're talking about Bridesmaids in this episode, and since we've recently also done other comedy films like Little Miss Sunshine and Love Actually, we thought it would be interesting to have a conversation about the state of comedy and whether comedy is in crisis, as the industry starts to say. Some people are making the argument that, you can't be funny anymore because you're going to get canceled, and, like Netflix taking over and there's no point in doing comedy anymore. So we asked our listeners our thoughts on the subject, and I would love for us to go through some of the answers if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Cool.
So a podcast actually gave probably the most comprehensive comment in the, it was an interesting mix of thoughts. So first, a general emergence of wide societal sensitivity and the need to cater to all sensitivities dilutes the possibility to offend, which isn't to say being offensive equates comedy, right? Second, most comedies are so uniform, formulaic in aesthetic, in narrative, and in expectation. There is not enough risk to push on some standards or the status quo. The best comedies are a bit rebellious, a bit askew, and seldom cater to wide sensibilities. Haven't had a great comedy in probably over a decade. So I think they speak to the emergence of political correctness, really, and how supposedly you're not. If you're a comedian or if you're a comedy writer, you're probably feeling less encouraged to, write down a joke.
Sometimes I feel like that. But then I think perhaps Life of Brian wouldn't have got made. And even so when Life of Brian was released, like the church went into meltdown. It was very controversial. But then we've just had, say, the Book of Mormon in the last, it feels like modern. It's quite old now, isn't it? But that sort of gives me faith that you can still offend but be funny and do it in a way that isn't mean. It's just, making light of everything at once. All religions get sent up in the Book of Mormon.
I have to say, can I just say, I take back everything I said about I Know Movies and You Don't, because in his reply to your comment, Sophie, he's also referenced Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is a fantastic film, which does not get enough credit. So
I
will
agree.
say that.
Hard retweet.
The thing that I would say as well is there's a lot of funny TV out there. So what is the difficulty in making longer form funny? I think
when you say funny TV, like what examples
so
of modern?
Motherland came out over the last couple of years. Motherland's fantastic. Fleabag is still kind of relatively, it's not that old now, is brilliantly funny. Like there's funny, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There you go. That's been running for years. It's like, it's funny TV shows. What is it about movies that people are struggling to, I guess with TV shows it's a once off, but then again, Fleabag's not really like, Fleabag is like a linear thing, and like there's a series arc to it. Like maybe it's hard because of sensitivity. Maybe sensitivity is the wrong word, but because of
being worried to offend.
Because of being worried to offend, it's almost like with a series maybe it's easier because you can take your time around the jokes, you can give a bit more backstory. Where as for a film to land and for a comedy movie to do what it needs to do, it kind of needs to be like a joke a minute for 90 minutes, and then when it gets to 90 minutes you're done. Whereas do people worry about that? And it's why TV is maybe funnier, because you have more time to flesh out characters and stuff like that. Whereas
I think that's a good point. I would argue it's actually more of a gatekeeper issue rather than a creator problem. So for example, was it BBC that the Fleabag was on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like BBC took a risk in a way, like quote unquote risk, unfortunately. Like
because
with
of the unique way the BBC is funded. That's how they can.
And in fairness, some of the risks the BBC have taken over, whether you agree with what some of the BBC does with the license fee or not. Fleabag, a risk. I May Destroy You, a risk. Amazing TV shows.
Yeah, exactly. While like the major like Hollywood, studios clearly see that.
Yeah, you get Top Gun Maverick with Tom Cruise. Because it's like the most popular genre of movie that can yield the most revenue. Yeah. Whereas like nobody's going to go into a movie pitch meeting trying to say that comedy is going to make you huge mega bucks like that.
Yeah. So I do think that, the Julia Roberts, rom-com has died, like that kind of
90s aesthetic.
Yeah, which used to sell so well. I think that's the problem for me. It's not about are we allowed to say what we're allowed to say, because other commenters said, well, there is TikTok, there is YouTube. So people are out there making jokes. Then they find like platforms that are democratized like TikTok. But I think it's the studios that are like, we're not even going to fund you because the movie is going to flop, which is true. Like Bridesmaids would be a Netflix original today. Like it wouldn't make the money that it made in the box office that it did like 11 when it came out years ago. For some reason, people don't go to the cinema to watch comedies anymore.
Watching comedy in like large groups, especially in movies, maybe I think it's different because you're just watching it's not like going to a comedy show or something like that, where it's an actual person standing in front of you telling jokes. It is so subjective that if you're not like in a movie theater, if you're the person not laughing, it's kind of an intimidating thing. So it's almost easier to watch comedy movies at home because you feel disarmed by it.
I think that one of the big reasons why people go to the cinema is because they want to check they're human, and when they feel sad and they look at everyone else feeling sad, they're like, yeah, I'm just like them, we're all the same. And when they laugh and then you see everyone else laughing.
Yeah, but I think it's different when it's maybe it's wrong, maybe not laughing, maybe laughing at something that you shouldn't laugh at then. Yeah. That would be considered offensive. Like if you laugh at a joke that you're probably not supposed to laugh at, then you look around you and go, oh shit.
I
don't know.
Potentially. Though one other thing that just came to mind was, I think I mentioned this before, I remember Jason Bateman saying, because he has access to all the Netflix data and whatever, because he's been working with them for so long, that for some reason comedy TV shows have the highest drop-off rates as well on Netflix. So people actually don't even finish like comedy shows compared to drama or like mystery or whatever it might be, which I think goes back to your point around like they don't like the comedy shows today don't really have anything but punchlines. They don't really have narrative that gets you to go to the next episode, like Fleabag, like that sort of combination of narrative and humor is actually quite rare.
It's a bit like what's the difference between porn and erotica. Like erotica can still hold up without the sex because the narrative and the story is still there, and it's the same with what you're saying about comedy, isn't it? You need some more structure behind it for it to stand up.
Otherwise, you watch a couple of episodes and you're like, that's not for me.
You're just watching people fucking and you're like,
Storyline is
what even is this?
That's
He hasn't even come to fix the printer. He's just here to have sex. What's going on?
Someone else said, everything in real life has become an absurd tragicomedy. The best writers cannot top, so we all just watch bullshit news instead and get our comedy kicks there.
I've seen Armando Iannucci get asked that question so much in the last few years. Like, how do you write comedy like Veep or In the Loop or whatever when government is so absurd itself?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you can still do it.
They used to, they used to say that when Trump was president all the time. Like, how do you lampoon Trump? Because by the time you've made fun of him, he's already said something 10 times as stupid. It's like, well, then you're just being lazy. You're not brave enough to try and write something funny, you know.
But I agree with what you're saying before. It definitely comes back to money.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I feel like that's what all of our lives are kind of coming down to in a way, in terms of all of the culture that we consume. Because with all the data that everyone goes on about being collected, it's like a race to the bottom. And it's like, well, we're just going to end up watching Top Gun Maverick every weekend because that makes the most money.
Well,
and the most people.
Like Netflix's whole commissioning structure is based on what is the data telling us what people are watching. Like, what are people watching?
But sometimes I don't know what I want. And I just want to be surprised and delighted.
Exactly, I'm surprised and delighted, but I still never click the shuffle button on Netflix. Because I'm surprised by what I want to watch. But I don't want it to be picked for me. I kind of still want to I still want to spend 2 hours just flicking through fucking everything on Netflix to try and find what I want to watch.
Yeah, I get that. But Netflix, I feel like they have mastered how they can make the most amount of money out of comedy with minimum budget, and that is the comedy specials that they do. Because they cost they just cost like getting the person on stage and the production show of the
the stand-up.
The stand-up, sorry, because they have created genre out of that.
The funniest thing I have seen, I would say, in the last like 3 or 4 years was the Bo Burnham special during lockdown. That was incredible. Like, I watched that and I was like, I know this is a stand-up comedy special, but this should win best film at the Oscars, it should win best film at the BAFTA, it should win Grammys, like everything about it. Like, that's the first time in a while. Like, I remember I watched that. I think I watched that on my own. Like, I just watched it late one night. I was like, oh, I like Bo Burnham, I'll give it a watch. On my own, no other people in the room, which I think it's telling if something can make you laugh on your own. You're not being influenced by the people around you. Pissed myself laughing for the whole thing. It's fucking hilarious.
I do think, though, the state of mind that you're in and how, it changes how receptive you are to content. Like,
no, but that was a lockdown thing, and I would watch it. I would watch. I've rewatched it since, and I still find it as funny. I find the songs as entertaining. I will listen to the album like on my way to work. Like, I've got it downloaded on my phone, so I can just flick it on and listen to it, and just like.
Is it like Flight of the Conchords? Where
Have you not watched it?
No, but you told me before.
It right up your alley. It's
cool.
It's genius. Like, it's so funny, and it's the way he did it. Like, filmed it over. I think it's filmed over like a year or something. And it is, it's absolutely genius.
And the last comment that stood out to me, which I hadn't considered, but it makes sense to an extent. Nate says, it's because movies are being more globally released, particularly in China. Comedy is very subjective to their own culture, and every culture has their own sense of humor, and that's why there are several versions of The Office. It is, like, I agree that sometimes comedy and humor doesn't transcend culture. So what you find funny, I might not find funny because I don't get the reference, the cultural reference. So I guess the more niche the humor is, the more it resonates on a local level. And it can't be like a global, like, box office hit in China. I get that.
Yeah, I think you have to hit gold with stuff like I would say, and again, it goes back to TV. I would say, and I don't know if I know Simon, you've seen, I don't know, so I would say Father Ted is the funniest television program ever written, like ever. I don't like. I can still watch that every time and be surprised at how much I laugh watching it. And I have met people who aren't like. Obviously, you would say Ben's Irish. Of course, he loves the TV show set in the 90s about 3 Irish priests living on an island off the coast of Ireland. But I think Father Ted is just universally funny. Like, I don't think I've met someone who has been like, I didn't really like. You don't have to get it, but it still makes you laugh. There's still bits in it that you just piss yourself laughing of, like the idea of 10 priests getting lost in a lingerie section. It's just fucking funny. Like, it's so funny.
Which goes back to smart writing.
Yeah.
'Cause I started watching Dairy Girls, Ben.
It just came up on
Brilliantly
your
funny.
screen actually before. I was like, what's
Yeah, Dairy Girls is brilliantly funny
I'm pretty
as well.
sure I'm missing like 5 out of 10 references, but I still enjoy it.
But you know what? It's
Yeah.
the thing is, and like the best comedy as well, it doesn't really matter in the setting. There's still something really relatable about
Yeah,
it. So like
exactly.
Dairy Girls has a really relatable thing of you don't relate to the setting of it being set in Ireland during the Troubles or whatever it is, but you relate to you and your group of friends at that age.
Yeah.
And you know, you relate to that thing.
like super bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't understand like the American school system of that, but you just kind of understand that weird friend you were in school with that drew dicks on everything. And like, there's kind of something that you can gravitate towards. Like the best comedies maybe don't have something that everybody laughs at, but they have something that everybody can kind of connect to or recognize. Yeah. Like it's hard to be, I think somebody, I thought I saw somebody making a comment about like something like Anchorman. And like Anchorman and Anchorman 2 are really good examples of something that's really funny and of its time, and something that tried to then grow and be different and was completely unfunny.
Which one was
nothing
unfunny?
relatable. The second one. I thought the second Anchorman was so unfunny because it tried to do everything the first one did, which was really of its time and kind of really different. And then they just tried to do it in like a woke new setting. And it was like, this is just not funny. It was the same with Zoolander 2 as well. Like,
Yeah, awful.
you know, comedy sequel, that's another thing. Comedy is really hard to do right. Comedy sequels are probably even harder. You know, even like Beverly Hills Cop is a great film. 2 and 3.
Bad Boys 2.
I like Bad Boys too. That's my hangover film. But I mean, the fact is they're making another Beverly Hills Cop as well is kind of like, oh Jesus. So like, it's really hard to do a sequel. There's like, how many comedy sequels can you look at and go, that was really good? Like, is Ghostbusters a comedy? If Ghostbusters is a comedy, then I would say maybe the second Ghostbusters stands up to the first one.
Right, yeah.
But it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it is
Airplane, maybe.
Naked Gun.
Naked Gun, yeah. Anything with Leslie Nielsen in it. Pretty hilarious.
I still love watching like clips of Leslie Nielsen using his fart machine in interviews. It's amazing. It's so childish.
Well, again, like, yeah, but it's so childish and
just silly.
that's why
It's
I think
silly. Like it's like really innocent comedy. It's not like offensive or clever or sophisticated. It's just a fart and it's still funny.
And that's why Airplane's brilliant, is because it's all so stupid. And if you go in trying to watch these films with like a highbrow sense of, well, I know what comedy is and I know how it should be structured. Yeah, but it's still like, I'm Serious and Don't Call Me Shirley is always going to be fun. Like when I say it, it's not funny, but when Leslie Nielsen says it in that scene, it's fucking brilliant. Like it's so funny.
It's the silliness that I like in a lot of those films.
Yeah, which we don't get anymore. I wonder, are people afraid to be silly? Like
that's what I was gonna say. That is such a good point, because about the simplicity, the silliness, like there is something there that people didn't used to overthink as much.
Like what pops
like,
into my head is Happy Gilmore. Is a great example of. Have you guys seen it?
Of course, yeah.
Do you know it?
Yeah.
Yeah. This it's just like the wooden hand getting run over. Just the stupid
Even the names like
banter.
Shooter McGavin.
I just wonder whether, like, if you do some sort of fart joke these days, they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, you're not being sensitive to people with IBS." Like, like I don't even know. Like, I feel like people are just gonna question everything.
You're
now.
not being sensitive to people called Shirley. Don't make the Don't Call Me Shirley joke anymore.
Actually, I did think that. I was watching Matilda. I thought, because there's this bit where Miss Trunchbull makes this boy eat loads and loads of cake.
Bruce Bogtrotter, yeah.
Yeah, but they pick quite a fat boy for that part. And obviously that's the portrayal they went for in the mid-90s or
That
whatever.
was traumatizing.
Yeah. But,
Is it not the same in the new one now?
I can't remember. But I guess there are things that were a bit crass back in the day that you'd be more sensitive about. But
well, so interestingly enough, that we're talking about Bridesmaids today. So I was reading today. So you know, M&M's have the spokes candies.
Candies, yeah.
You know, that's not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, Maya Rudolph is coming.
Maya Rudolph from Bridesmaids, who is the woman who's getting married in Bridesmaids, is now going to be the spokesperson from M&M's, because there's been so much backlash over the last year with how they've added a new spokes candy for M&M that they're just getting rid of it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So
What's
you know
candy?
on the M&M ads, an ad for M&M,
The
the
little
two
characters.
talking M&Ms.
Yeah.
There's not going to be talking M&Ms anymore, because there's been so much backlash over the last year of like, the portrayal of the female ones and like their sexuality and like how they're drawn, and you're just like, fucking Jesus
It's
Christ.
just ridiculous.
What? And so she's got the gig to then come up with a new.
She's going to be the face of M&M's now. She's gonna
getting
debut
paid the money.
Yeah. Oh, I'd say she's getting paid. She's going to debut on the Super Bowl. There's going to be an M&M's Super Bowl ad, and she's going to debut at that.
I didn't know it was like a sensitivity kind of.
Yeah, they put out a
my-
statement today. I think it's because Tucker Carlson, that
They're
arsehole
scared they're going to
on
get
Fox.
cancelled based on previous ad campaigns.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
So they're just preempting it now.
but yeah, I mean, it's not just affecting our movies anymore; it's affecting our candy.
Well, I don't really care about M&M's, to be honest.
Oh, Simon, how dare you?
But we,
I like
do,
it,
but we do care about Maya. So
Yeah.
we're
Yes.
going to take a short break and we'll be back with Bridesmaids.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2. Can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado.
Here we go again.
Okay, so we are back for another final scene breakdown. This time the final scene and kind of post-credit scene of the iconic 2011, wanna say, comedy Bridesmaids.
2011.
2011, no?
I think so.
2012?
Yeah,
Something like that. Yes, it's been ages.
That's mad.
it's an old movie. Yeah,
So wait, is it an anniversary? No, close to.
I don't think so.
Yeah. More than 10 years, basically.
It did introduce me to this song I'd never heard.
2011, June 24th, 2011.
2011.
This song just makes me wanna go.
Over 10 years. It's such a banger.
Oh,
It's quite swanky.
yeah.
I love it.
Oh God, perfect.
Should I take us through the plot?
Yes.
I mean, it's a
Yeah,
pretty
please
straightforward
do.
one. Annie, Kristen Wiig, is a single woman whose own life is a mess, but when she learns that her lifelong best friend, Lillian, Maya Rudolph, is engaged, she has no choice but to serve as the maid of honor. Though lovelorn and almost penniless.
Lovelorn and almost
that-
penniless.
that-
Wow,
that-
like longing. I think it's longing for love. Is it?
That is the actual summary from IMDb.
Wow.
And nevertheless, wins your way through the strange and expensive rituals associated with your job as a bride's go-to gal. Determined to make things perfect, she gamely leads Lillian and the other bridesmaids down the wild road to the wedding. I mean, that's the film, pretty much. Because Annie is the central character. Everyone else feels like supporting cast, pretty much.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the film, and what's your experience with the film? I'm assuming you've seen it a bunch of times, both of you, or
Yeah, I've seen it a few times. I think it's great. I mean, I think it's hilarious.
The scene that I always think about is the almond eating exchange really cracks me up. So they're in the shop trying on the dresses, and you're building up to the big shit scene
Oh,
and the
yeah.
sink is coming out of me like lava. But the bit
the
where
build-up is great.
the bit where she has to pretend she's not feeling ill and crunches some almonds, like sweet almonds.
so yeah.
I love that scene.
That whole scene is just, I mean, the shitting scene is just so funny.
Yeah, this one and the plane scene. I mean,
the
plane is just Kristen Wiig, just like a masterclass in acting. It's just help me, I'm poor. Like all of these memes are just.
And Melissa McCarthy talking through how to tape a gun to your ass cheeks or whatever it is, something like that. You know, cutting a hole in your pocket.
Yeah.
Squatting on that saying was
Air
kind of
Marshal John.
quite an experience.
Who's her real husband?
Is that her husband in real life? Is it Air
Ben
Marshal
Falcone.
John? Okay.
Yeah.
that's
Marshall.
really her husband.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So the
Yeah.
naughty bear scene is
It's not
like
okay.
Yeah.
that could be their bedroom.
That could be their bedroom.
They've been together for ages. And they've done
Didn't
quite
they make a
few
TV show together recently that was crap?
awful. I watched. Speaking of comedy,
Not gonna mince any
shows,
words.
I lasted 2 episodes. I couldn't. Yeah, and I also watched. I mean, slightly off topic, very very quickly. Super Intelligence on Prime with Melissa McCarthy.
What's that?
Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone as well. It's awful.
Oh, is it
I
like
also
that
watched-
spy movie?
It's worse. It's with like AI. It
God.
has James Corden? What's his
Yeah,
name?
Corden, yeah.
That's all I need to tell you.
Okay,
he plays
done.
the AI. Yeah. So going back to the film, fun fact: did you guys know Melissa McCarthy won an Oscar nomination?
Did she?
Yeah, for
Like Best Supporting
Bridesmaids.
Actress?
Yeah,
Good.
Good. Yeah, she's the best. She's probably the best thing in it.
She was really good, but to be nominated for an Oscar for that film, even though I feel like she wasn't very well known at the time.
I feel like that was
Maybe.
kind of her breakout, wasn't it? Like,
It
I mean,
feels like
she'd been in Gilmore Girls, I know, for quite a while, and that
Yes.
would have been like early 2000s. But I think that was kind of her introduction to
Hollywood.
like mainstream comedy kind of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a good Oscar nomination. That
Wow,
was so
Jesus,
funny.
I mean, how many people have gotten an Oscar nomination for shitting in a sink?
Yeah.
I can't imagine too many. But she is the standout and kind of the hero of the film. She's the one
really
that at
good.
the end of it goes to Annie and is kind of like there's kind of comparisons to her to kind of like Zach Galifianakis's character in the Hangover, like this kind of where she just assumes like her and Annie are best friends again. Like that pep talk at the end is great, where she's just like,
I love
"I'm
that
life,
scene.
I'm beating you up." Like, what are you gonna do? Complain about it? And it's just she's great in it.
I love that.
So yeah,
scene.
well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, I like that film too. It's not a perfect movie. I feel like the pace is a bit, draggy at times, but those two scenes are just
And I think when it comes to endings, we also don't get like two of the characters who've been in it from throughout as well. We don't get endings for. So the girl who plays Erin in The Office, what's her name? Oh my God, I'm forgetting.
Ellen Kemper.
Yeah, so
Not
Ellie Kemper.
Ellie
And
Kemper.
so Rita and Becca, two of the actresses in it, who have a really funny scene on the airplane where she's talking about like her awful sex. Like, is it normal that like every time like the lights have to be off? And
Is that the really nervous?
yeah,
one?
she's and like they're really funny, but like at the end she's
We didn't
like
get enough of them.
yeah, we didn't get enough of them, and then we don't get a resolution to them at all. We get that Annie's with Chris O'Dowd, and Maya Rudolph's character gets married, and Rose Byrd's character is just a bitch.
Yeah, but
And
it kind of
we learn something about her that she was really sad all along.
Yes.
Doesn't make me feel bad for you,
Yeah.
And then those two are just kind of left behind, and obviously Melissa McCarthy ends up with Air Marshal John.
I
do
quite like
agree.
Annie's mum as a character when she gets obsessed with the Tom Hanks film Castaway.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And she wants her to move back in so they can watch Castaway.
I just like, and I like that she's in AA. She goes to AA meetings as a sponsor, and then just doesn't keep it anonymous. Just goes around telling
and
people
she
she's
doesn't
in AA
drink,
meetings.
and she's never drunk.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual ending, right? Take it from the top. So official like spoiler zone here. So as you recall,
The movie's been out for 12 years.
I
It's
mean,
not spoiler
you're
zone
not
anymore.
allowed to
Come
not
on.
have seen it at this point. So Annie spends much of the movie kind of circling Rhodes, the highway patrol officer, as you said, Ben.
Chris O'Dowd.
We love him. After they quote unquote close the deal, Annie flees. She ignores his voicemails and basically treats him like a jerk when he shows up at the scene of your car accident, and she lives with the fuck buddy
Her
John
himbo,
Oh,
which is
John
a term
Hamm.
which is a term
He
that
was
I
so
heard
good
recently.
in that film.
A hot bimbo. Yeah, he's so good. He's such a dick. Like he's such a dick
it's
in
just
it, and
incredible.
you just get lost in his eyes.
Comedy skills. Annie later tries to apologize, but Rose isn't having it. When he helps Annie and Ellen find Lillian on her wedding day, she sends her on her way with a pretty and equivocal final farewell. However, fast forward to the final scene of the movie, after a live sing-along with Wilson Phillips, Annie leaves the wedding only to find Rhodes standing there outside waiting for her. Annie apologizes and they share a kiss. And the movie ends with the two of them looking into each other's eyes and all the jazz and all that Hollywood tease.
And they drive away, don't they?
They drive
He
away.
pretends to arrest her.
And that's the actual final scene of the film. We're going to talk about the post-credit scene. But yeah, what did you make of that? Like, my question is, what did you make of that film? Which I did feel like at the time it was, quite different, right? Like up until that point, we had the Judd Apatow films like Knocked Up, Superbad, 40-Year-Old Virgin, but they were all like male heavy. Like that was one of the very first female heavy cast that were allowed to, shit on the street, for example, and do those sorts of things. But it still ended on a very conventional, girl needs to get the guy to feel happy kind of ending. And what did you make of that?
She kind of treats him like shit for quite a lot. Like Annie as a character, you're kind of like, she's not like the most sympathetic person in the world. In some,
especially not in the jewelry shop scene.
Yeah,
She's awful. My
she's
argument is that
awful.
she's the villain in the movie.
But that's why she's so relatable. It's 'cause
Yeah.
she's got this side to her that isn't perfect, and you can relate to that.
Yeah.
She's like,
And he is the unconventional kind of knight in shining armor. Like it's,
But I can't relate to ruining my best friend's wedding just because I'm having a bad day. Like when in the baby shower scene, like I was so mad at her.
She gets like cooked up to boiling point by the new friend.
Yeah.
And she's like in this rage.
And that's where it kind
explodes.
It does as a film, it does follow those kind of classic comedy tropes of like the one person like trying to control everything and making the other person really, and like pushing them to, like it all feels really manipulative that like, I'm going to annoy you so much that you quit as being the bride. Like it is quite like formulaic in that regard.
But it's like, I think that's why it's so relatable, because she's really struggling in life and all this stuff just mounts up and just keeps mounting until she has that complete meltdown, which is like exquisite to watch.
Yeah.
The cookie and everything.
Where she's trying to knock over the big chocolate fountain.
Yeah.
No, you don't get a puppy.
No, I'm happy with that. I just go back to what Ben said. Like I feel like her relationship with the patrol officer kind of died in the car accident scene. Like he was pretty much like, we're done. Because he had, fucked up so many times.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, like her.
And then we did get an explanation as to why he comes back
and
he's waiting for her.
He just kind of like crawls back to her. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
It is a bit of I would have loved one more scene in between that kind of shows that maybe, like at least a maybe. But I don't know.
I'd had enough jokes by then. I didn't really mind how it ended. I had such a good time watching it.
I guess, and that's the thing, isn't it? Right, like with an ending for a film like that, it's you've had an hour.
And anyway,
and a half
that wasn't the
of this.
real ending.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in a second.
Right,
But it's just like there's no questions answered. Just kind of tying it off the loose
It's
ends.
almost like the film's a series of vignettes in a way, and you can watch them in isolation and really enjoy them. And so
you can watch them as like, you could almost watch them as like comedy sketches, all kind of like vignettes or comedy sketches stitched together. Like the wedding dress shopping thing could be an SNL sketch.
Yeah, the plane one could be.
Yeah.
The mum and castaway one.
And
like
I guess
the restaurant scene could be.
Apatow films kind of feel like that, and it probably happens. Stuff like that probably happens with movies like Bridesmaids, when you have a cast who are all like have backgrounds from like SNL and stuff like that, as like sketch comedians, and it's probably difficult to. It's probably just easy to like try and find a vehicle for loads of funny sketches to like work together. But like, that's not to say that it's not a brilliantly funny film. And
yeah, I have so much respect for how do you say it?
Apatow, yeah.
Yeah, because like we were saying before, imagine how it's hard to do comedy, and then you'd have to do it on set with lights and over again.
Yeah,
and then you had this nub of an idea that was funny to begin with, and on the 59th reshoot, you're like, is this still funny? That's really hard.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Tom Cruise doing a motorbike wheelie, you're like, you can get the wheelie just right on the 59th go. But it's the 59th reshoot of you doing a line, and you're not sure if nobody can tell anymore if it's funny or not. And that's seriously skillful to be able to cut through all that and still find some gold.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sophie? What do you make of it?
No, I just I agree. I feel like because I did like his films. Well, he did produce the film. He didn't direct. But he was.
It's written by Kristen Wiig, I think, and someone else. Is
Paul Feig. I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah. So it was directed by him for sure.
Okay.
And I know Apatow, who's was an executive producer, so he was heavily involved. So I could almost see that, because it was such a groundbreaking film at the time because of the female heavy cast, how they basically took the, guy gets the girl kind of formula of those films at the time, and they just flipped the narrative for girl gets the guy to feel happy sort of thing, which is fine. But, at the time there were enough resolutions, like she had found her best friends. She was kind of like resolved her issues with Helen. She was back on track. It was just like,
yeah, like the one
I didn't
with
feel like it
Helen.
was a patronizing ending. I didn't feel like it.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't feel like it was, she needed him to be happy. It was just they came together and it was like a little treat that it was all happy.
But he
I
came
think
to
it's
her
just
just
kind
waiting
of-
for her outside, even though he had dumped her. Like, it was just a bit random. But
To be honest, it probably doesn't even need that. It probably just
Yeah.
needs to end at the Wilson Phillips scene.
I agree.
Like, it as an ending.
But you're supposed to be wondering, during the Wilson Phillips scene, you're supposed to be like, whoa, did they or didn't they? And
Yeah,
then it's
well,
like,
exactly.
and his
Yeah,
little...
But that would
yeah,
have
but
been much more interesting.
Maybe you don't need to know. Maybe it just goes from Wilson Phillips into Hungry Bear.
Yeah, but they probably did that edit, and then they were like, "Oh, let's just give them all a nice treat."
Yeah, but then the same thing happened with Blade Runner, you know? It's like a nice treat that nobody really enjoyed at the end.
What it should say when you watch the film now, it should say, "Do you want the treaty treat ending
Yes.
or the not treat ending?"
Yeah,
And you get to decide.
like in Wayne's World, where it's like, oh, we do the sad ending, then we do the super happy ending, and then we do the horny ending. You watch, Melissa McCarthy scene with her husband.
Ending on the Wilson Phillips, scene would be amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like
on board.
what, like 5 minutes earlier.
Because ultimately, the film was about the wedding. You know, like it was leading up to
and
the
I think
wedding.
you have the resolution with Helen anyway, in the fact that Helen comes to find her, and there's the admission that like she's the only one who'll know where, Maya Rudolph's character is gone. Like that resolution is fine. You don't actually need her to come up and be like, I'm actually really sad, and like this happens with all my friends. And you're like, oh god, come on.
Maybe the perfect ending for me would have been off the Officer Rhodes returning for no reason, and just cut to like the naughty bear scene.
Yeah,
That'd be so cool.
Because you could imagine that going on in like a hotel room during the
Here it is.
dancing
What
or
you
whatever.
do is you cut to the naughty bear scene, and rather than eating a sandwich, they're eating cakes from Annie's new bakery that's doing so successful. So we know Annie's doing great with her bakery, and Melissa McCarthy and Air Marshal John are having a great time just with a big phallic shaped cake or something. Maybe it's like an erotic bakery.
Okay, we definitely
It has to be funny. It has to be a sandwich, like a flappy Subway sandwich.
You can make so many flappy sweets.
Yeah, but there's something like
It could be
extra gross
baguette.
about
It
that
could be
sandwich.
baguette. It could be baguette.
And the way she
Yeah,
opens
exactly.
the-
You can
there's a bit
bread
of
is-
half, she
bread is
flaps
baked.
a bit of meat
Bread.
and like opens
Yeah,
it.
she like flaps it in front of the screen, doesn't she, at one point? Yeah.
Like a focaccia.
Yeah. It's all floppy and greasy. It's perfect.
Some mozzarella and pesto.
Yeah,
Oh my
and
God.
the funny thing is though, like he's like tied up, and there's like police tape in the background.
I like it when she begins that scene and she goes, tape number 119.
Yeah, it's like it's an autopsy. She's like it's like take number 193, mine and Air Marshal John's first sexual encounter.
That's so funny. So that is the almost post-credits scene. I mean, it's not like full post-credits, but kind of, because it does cut to black and then, right?
No, it doesn't. It literally cuts
doesn't.
straight to that as it
It just
what's
goes
funny.
and it's like a
Well,
little bit of white
because
noise.
it's funny. It's almost like she has the whole movie on videotape and she's accidentally recorded over it with her sex tape.
Yeah,
It's quite
yeah.
funny. Like it kind of like interrupts.
Oh, I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Yeah, that's good.
It's like it cuts in like a video, like the way like when you used to like
Wait,
record
like when
over
you
videos
recorded over your parents' wedding video
with Barney, exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
Do you know that story?
No. What?
yeah. Apparently, I did that as a child. Recorded off my parents' wedding
The
video.
only copy.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
That is very
No
strange.
digital copies back then.
Did you like record a little bit in? So like they put it on as a treat.
Yeah, I
and then-
think so. I think it just at one point it just cuts out.
Well, yeah, so the post-credit scene is basically Megan and Air Marshal. We see them in a bed together, but instead
Yeah.
of having sex, Megan just feeds him this like weird...
No, it's not. Well, she's feeding him the sandwich, but then it cuts. It keeps cutting, and then at one point she's like in his crotch eating the sandwich out of his crotch. It's like,
Yes, it's,
It's
some
almost
sort of
it's
fetish.
almost worse than actual sex.
It's the most ridiculous thing that we see in the film by far, probably.
but yeah.
But it's one of my favorite scenes actually. It's not like
it's
It's very short. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and also
you know
like,
what?
I wasn't.
it's the perfect ending to the film.
Yeah.
like it is the perfect way to finish it. Like, and again, like if you took out that 5 minutes and you go from you cut from Wilson Phillips like it's their wedding video almost. Like it'd be nice if it like faded, like the camera pans back as if someone's filming, like a videographer filming the wedding, and then it cuts into, because isn't it? She's marrying Melissa McCarthy's brother. So
Yeah.
you can almost imagine her having like the videotape of the wedding and then it accidentally cutting to her sex tape with Air Marshal John.
Also, another reason I think it's the perfect ending is because when I was in the cinema, it was like an unexpected treat, because I remember like starting to get up and I wasn't used to those kind of scenes, and I was like, "What? There's more!" And it was amazing. It was like
So
an extra.
good.
And
level.
it's nice that you don't have to wait for it. It's not
Yeah.
like an end credit scene that you have to be like, oh, you have to sit through all of the grips and all of the best boys and all of the catering people, and then you'll see the scene with Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
Like it's just happens straight away. No offense to all those people who I'm sure deserve the credit for the work they do.
No, yeah, of
not
course.
shitting on the crew, but
So the scene, unsurprisingly, was fully improv, and I have a TV interview from, I want to say more than 6 years ago now, with Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone just walking through that scene and they tell the actual background story.
That was not supposed to be in the movie. No, we did it on like a lunch break. The last minute, Judd Apatow said like, oh, let's do something that'll be fun and put it on the internet, maybe. And then we shot it, and then he called and was like, it's at the end of the movie. We were like, what?
We're out of time. Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
That's
So was it like in their trailer or something? Like, what was was it their actual bedroom then, or was it like
shot it during lunch break?
Yeah,
so it's
it was in their trailer.
Yeah, it must be in
yeah.
like their trailer or something. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Because I think if you watch it back, it does kind of look like it's in like a caravan or something.
Do you reckon that's just off their phone then? Someone they just put their phone on a shelf and then just self-shot it.
I think she recorded it. Like it looks like it's self-recorded by Megan.
It's proper
in a
authentic.
way. But they were together at the time, I think. So it was more like
I was going to say, were they married at the time?
Yeah, at least they were together. So it was
Okay.
more like it wasn't
That's an
as
interesting
weird.
way, like when people talk like, oh yeah, I met my husband making this film. You're like, oh, who's your husband? Air Marshal John.
Yeah. Oh my god.
AMJ.
Yeah, literally, like my first sexual experience with the man who would be my husband was the time I ate a sandwich off him on camera.
It's such a
ate a
good
floppy sandwich off him, yeah.
Because the original question to the interview was whether their children have seen the scene, and
God.
Melissa was like, absolutely not, or not over my dead body.
That'd be like, again, another good recording story of me as a child was like, I wonder if they've done what my family used to do with my old VHS copy of Goldeneye, where all the raunchy bits had been recorded out, had been like stopped and recorded out of it. I wonder if, like, does their copy of Bridesmaids just stop?
Yeah.
Just go straight to the credits. There's none of that, you know?
Probably had a clean copies, yeah, somewhere. Well, we definitely solved the ending, right?
I think so.
Well,
I think we've given them a better ending. We've given them some edits to make. Maybe we need a not an extended cut, like a re-edited ending for
exactly
us to watch.
So yeah, I mean, as always, if you love what you heard, share this episode in your stories or with a group chat. We will be back in a couple of weeks with our awards season episode and a final scene for the ages, the one and only The Departed. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.